the gap, standing for Jesus, standing in the gap for family and friends, standing in the gap, one love for all, so we all can make it in.
Just to bring this all up to date, this study as the Constitution and the Bible is something that is on time today. Things are happening today in the world, and that it's sometimes hard to understand, but it keeps happening, and it's all still related to this spiritual warfare that we're involved in right now. And what I've done here in the last developed here lately is something I call Gap News. Gap News, and what that is standing in the gap news. Standing in the gap news, and the news is just what it says. What is happening here today, and there are a lot of things that are going on today. We're about to go into what is February, which is Black History Month, where we look back over our history and we're at our achievements and the people who have led us and brought us, and you know, it was done to make us feel proud of our history, because the history of blacks in America was not taught in schools or in books. You read a lot of books back in the day, you didn't see any of that, and it's a bit basically a recent phenomenon. So what I want to do right now in our Gap News is to start out with, and as we're about to launch into Black history. Excuse me?
Do you have the image for that?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I get all caught up in, and as we're about to get into Gap News, sorry about that. See, that's why I say that this collaboration works well, because without her, I wouldn't be able to do all this. Anyway, we're into Gap News, and I'm gonna ask Marvel to put on a video which talks to us about Black History Month.
Every February, the United States and Canada recognize Black History Month, but its founder hoped for a different future for Black history. Carter G. Woodson, the Harvard-educated historian who established Black History Month, hoped Black history would become so ingrained in American history that Black History Month would be unnecessary. But in 1926, when he began Negro History Week, the second week in February, he had two objectives: to prove to white America that blacks had played important roles in the creation of America and deserved to be treated equally as citizens, and second, to increase the visibility of black life and history, at a time when the media was portraying the black community negatively with anti-black racist imagery, like black caricatures, blackface minstrel shows, and films like the 1927 hit The Jazz Singer. In 1976, Woodson's Association for the Study of American Life and History, which sets the annual theme for every Black History Month, lobbied for Black History Week to become a month, and got President Gerald Ford to make the first proclamation. Every president since then, except for Donald Trump, has proclaimed the new theme annually. Congress officially recognized Black History Month in 1986. Black History Month is often controversial, with calls for Whiteness History Month or Confederate History Month, to others, including some black people, saying it's outlived its usefulness or that it's antithetical to American values. But despite the official designation, there are no federal requirements for teaching black history in school curriculums, and on an average, less than 9% of history class is spent on black history. In some states, it's completely ignored.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, check out these other.
Give you a little history on Black History Month as you start into. Make sure that you recognize and acknowledge it. Black History Month. I mean, if it's not important to you, then I guess you won't do it. But if it is important to you, make sure you acknowledge it, because we have a rich history in this country, even though there are those that would like to make it seem or make people think that it's not worthwhile. And in that, as we stay in the gap and stay in current events, we find out that even though we have this month, used to be a week, now we have this month, and we're about to go into it, there are those that don't think black history is worth getting into or studying or educating and all that. And if you've been following current events, you might know where I'm leading. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask Marvel to play our second video.
Black history is American history.
Protest and pushback in Florida with a new potential legal battle over race education.
I can't believe that this is 2023 and America is talking about censoring education.
Civil rights attorney Ben Crump announcing his plan to sue Republican Governor Ron DeSantis and the state after DeSantis blocked a pilot AP African American Studies course in Florida.
No to censorship. No to censorship. Yes to community.
DeSantis says the state already teaches African American history and is opposed to specific lessons in the curriculum.
We believe in teaching kids facts and how to think, but we don't believe they should have an agenda imposed on them. When you try to use Black history to shoehorn in queer theory, you are clearly trying to use that for political purposes.
What message do you feel this ban may have communicated to your student?
I think it communicates very clearly that African American history is not as important as other history.
Developed by the College Board, the pilot course is currently in 60 schools nationwide. The organization says it does not require students to adopt a particular ideology, and after a feedback period, it will make appropriate revisions to the preliminary pilot course framework. These Florida high schoolers say this is personal.
What's your reaction to this AP African American Studies ban?
It's keeping African Americans silenced.
In my opinion, that it was targeted and I couldn't learn about my own history.
I think it just symbolizes like blatant racism.
DeSantis has made education policy a key focus of his administration. Last year, controversially signing into law restrictive legislation on race and gender. In response to Crump's intent to sue, the Florida Department of Education said it was a publicity stunt and that they expect the removal of content on critical race theory, Black queer studies, intersectionality, and other topics that violate our laws.
Florida's Department of Education tells us they will review the College Board's revised curriculum next month. Attorney Ben Crump says he will only file a lawsuit if DeSantis does not change his stance.
Thanks for watching our.
So, in the news today, this happened the last few days. What's going on down there in Florida, and the timing couldn't have been worse for the governor of Florida to make this announcement as we're about to go into Black History Month, basically saying that it's not worth it for that Black History class because it doesn't contribute anything and all that. And so I applaud those down in Florida who are pushing back on Attorney Crump and all that, and understand that this guy DeSantis is supposed to be someone who is going to be running for president of the United States, and is basically had been a disciple of Donald Trump, but now he wants his own agenda. So now he's pushing in a certain direction. And if you didn't catch the another report that came up there, Donald Trump is starting to chime in on this too. So, you know, they're trying to outdo each other on this. But we know, and we want to operate on the truth. Remember, we stand in the gap on the truth, on the Word of God. And so, as we celebrate our Black history, we need to be concerned about our future also. Because if they're trying, and that's not the only thing they're trying to take away. I'm surprised Marvel hadn't keyed in on this because she's very passionate about this. Marvel, you got anything you want to add?
Well, you know, I'm not going to make a political statement, but, you know, to try to erase Black history is racist. That's racist. And you know what else? In Florida, they have Asian history AP class. They have French history AP class. They have Italian language AP class. They got all of these, I'm going to call them Caucasian and Eastern not Eastern, but European culture AP classes. And when somebody tries to bring a black AP class, he says that has no value. That's crazy.
It is. Now, you know, one of the things that, one of the reasons for all that is because, you know, people want to press an agenda that slavery, that's old news. It's over. Let's put it behind us and let us just move on and all that. Now, we talked last time about reparations and why there's still that lingering effect of slavery on this country. And not on this country, on each of us who are African Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, as long as they just want to move forward on an unequal playing field, then we're never going to get beyond that. Your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren are still going to have to deal with this because America will not address this deal of slavery.
That's what Sister Michelle said. She said, there will always be those who don't want our story and our facts told or learned.
Exactly. She's absolutely right. So understand this. We need to understand it, and it's the truth. And no matter how they may try to make you think it's not, slavery's shadow still falls on the United States. 1865 was when the Civil War was over. Shortly after that was the 13th Amendment. Then you had the 14th Amendment and all that to supposedly deal with this issue of slavery. And people now say it's been 100 years, so slavery has no relevance or anything, but it does.
Just look at the statistics. Look at the statistics. And they are daunting. They're daunting. You look at black wealth versus other races. You look at black educational achievement. Look at black health. You know, so slavery, then Jim Crow, then de facto segregation, all of those are still the remnants of slavery. And then with what's happened in the last, I'll call it 6 years or so, where at one point it was not politically correct to let people know that you were racist. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it wasn't politically correct. People wouldn't just come out and say things like they're saying now. Mm-hmm. You know, there's good people on both sides, mm-hmm, and stuff like that. That didn't happen because people were at least taking the attitude that we know it was wrong, mm-hmm, we know it wasn't fair, and we want to try to slowly, you know, that's how we want to slowly make the adjustments so that we can, you know, at one point, sometime way long from now, have equality in this country. Mm-hmm. And then somebody came in and said, well, no, we don't want that. We want it back the way it was, where we didn't have equality, where we were able to enjoy our white privilege, where we were able to put our knee and our foot and our boot on the neck of black people and keep them down, because we don't want them to be able to play on an equal playing field. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, for those that don't believe that there are lingering effects of slavery, you should understand the response that came from the 1619 Project, and then all this critical race theory and the pushback from the same governor down in Florida for those wokeness, he calls it. He said Florida is where wokeness comes to die, and all that kind of thing. So, you know, I'm going to ask Marvel to play us a video on the lingering effects of slavery.
I feel excited and I feel anxious. You never know how something will go out into the world, but I know how hard we worked on it.
Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Nikole Hannah-Jones is back again with her most ambitious endeavor yet.
As a woman in my 40s, I am part of the first generation of Black Americans in the history of the United States to be born in a society in which Black people had full rights of citizenship.
Hosting a new Hulu original docuseries adapted from her landmark New York Times Magazine anthology and best-selling book, The 1619 Project.
The very first enslaved Africans were brought here over 400 years ago. Since then, no part of America's story has been untouched by the legacy of slavery.
You feel that in all aspects of of who we are,
yes,
it can be traced back and has the remnants of slavery. Do you think that's something that people will understand with this series?
Absolutely. I mean, that is what the series argues. So it's not just a historical documentary. It's actually a documentary about contemporary society.
Premiering at a time when heated debates about how history is taught in our children's schools are erupting across the nation. Just last week, the Florida Board of Education made headlines after it rejected the addition of an advanced placement African American studies course.
The state should not be able to prohibit ideas from being taught simply because a politician doesn't like them.
And how do you think this series will fit into this ongoing conversation we have in this country about race?
This medium of television is democratizing. You can ban what someone can learn in a classroom, but you can't stop them from watching this documentary series and getting that information. So I think it is really coming at a critical time.
Jones traveling across the country, sharing the stories of everyday people from all walks of life.
We follow real-life Americans as, you know, the unionization fight with Amazon workers in Alabama and New York. We follow a Black mother who lost one of her twins she was pregnant with because of racism in healthcare. In about 22 weeks, things start to really physically change for you.
I'm in pain. I can't walk down a flight of steps or up a flight of steps. I can't walk down a block. And she's aware of all of these things, and it still doesn't make her check me any further.
What resonated with you most?
What resonated with me most is just the enduring spirit of Black people in this country. Despite everything that we as a people have gone through, and despite often, you know, these stereotypes that somehow Black people think they are victims, that Black people love their country, that they have always been willing to fight to try to force their country to live up to its highest ideals, and that they just want what is due, that Black people are willing to work hard like every other American, but have never had an equal chance in this society.
The thought-provoking series also introducing viewers to Jones and her family on a personal level.
My father, he always flew a flag in our front yard. One thing about Dad, he was patriotic.
He was a part of that United States Army. They served their country, but hey, you serve your country don't mean your country's gonna serve you.
Roger Ross Williams, who's the executive producer and directed the Democracy episode, really thought that that was the way to connect all of the episodes together, was through my family story and you know, standing in for Black America. That nearly everything that my family experienced, most Black Americans have experienced also.
How has your life changed since the project?
It really has become my life's work in a way that I couldn't have imagined when I pitched the project. I certainly didn't think 4 years later I would be getting ready to launch a 6-part documentary series about this.
And although the show is told through the lens of Black Americans, Jones says this is something for all Americans to watch and reflect on.
This is the American story. We've tried to segregate these histories. There's Black history and then there's American history. But you can't understand America if you don't understand the role of Black Americans, the role of slavery, the role of racism.
One word to describe. Okay, if I say the 1619 Project is?
Truth.
Our thanks to Robin. The 1619 Project premiered.
All right. I like the way she ended that up by saying, in one word, it's the truth. And what it shows is people don't want to hear the truth. A lot of times people say if you're too honest and you're too truthful, you would get killed for being that. And the amount of adversity that she has had to endure by just this 1619 project an affirmation of that. Now, if you want to see what she has produced, they said it's streaming on Hulu, and
That's right.
Started Thursday, just a couple days ago. So you can, and I would advise you to check that out.
And you know, you can read that book too. That it's very informative. It's very informative. But you know what? The thing I want to say is, how can you say the truth is quote unquote woke? So the truth is the truth. The truth is the truth. And everything that's been told, everything that's been fabricated, everything that's been glossed over is not the truth. And, you know, to say that, well, it'll hurt our children's feelings if we teach them the truth, that's craziness. That's, you know, backwardness. But what it is, again, it's going back to we don't want to have an equal playing field, just like Ms. Jones said. We don't want to have an equal playing field. We want it to remain unequal. But
just deal with it, you know.
Sister Michelle had a really good point. I'm gonna just put it up here for y'all right now.
Okay.
What she said. Even though God created an equal playing field, that was all through His Son, Jesus Christ. But even with that being done, people fight against that. You know, the Christian nationalists, quote unquote, Christian nationalists, they are fighting against it.
I like the way she put that.
Yes.
The level playing field is through Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Way to go. I wish I had thought of that.
That's why we have participants in our class that are giving. Thank you so much, Sister Michelle, for sharing your thoughts and enhancing our class today.
Well, one thing that I don't want to get away from, because sometimes we can get caught up in all this current events and all that kind of thing, and get away from the theme that we're working on, and that's why I want to bring you back to how are we testing, how are we gauging the United States and this Constitution and what people are doing in reference to it. We're gauging it by Micah 6:8. And I'm going to keep flashing Micah up on here because we have to understand, if we the thing we just talked about in current events in the Gap News, Micah says, is that just? No. There's no way in the world that is just the way that our people have been treated in this country and have been treated throughout and still are being treated that way. That's not justice. And then there's mercy. Have those actions shown any mercy upon black people? No, it hasn't. It simply hasn't. Walk humbly with your God, meaning that those who are in power, those who have the power to do this or to do that, are they walking humbly with God in humility and all that? Once again, I'll tell you, no. And they haven't done it over 400 years. They haven't done it since the Civil War. They haven't done it since the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and even up till now. Now, when they're trying to say, we're not even going to teach your history. No. And we're going to keep comparing what they're doing. We're going to compare this Constitution to Micah 6:8 because God has clearly shown us what is good and what He requires of us. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind.